Welcome to the Earth Your Wild podcast, brought to you by Reuserbox, providing a better way to buy cardboard boxes. We're your hosts, Jack and Ellie.
This is the podcast where we talk to industry experts and change makers to try to answer the question, how do we make our businesses better for people and the planet? Today we're joined by Rebecca Thompson, founder of Ecosy Travel. Ecosy Travel was set up to make it easier for green travellers to plan and book low-carbon, flight-free holidays. They are on a mission to educate and inspire people to reduce the carbon footprint of their holidays with genuinely sustainable experiences. Thanks for joining us today, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Nice to see you. For those who haven't heard of Ecosy before, can you explain a bit more about what you do and kind of the change that you guys are trying to see in the world or create in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started Ecosy Travel about 2 years ago, and we're set up as a social enterprise. And the mission really is to reduce the climate impact of travel and tourism. So we're doing that with kind of support for the traveller. So making it as easy as possible for anyone who wants to try out green travel and look at how they might switch away from flying to plan their holiday in the easiest way possible. I think what lots of people are faced with is a kind of a great idea, really wanting to do something a bit differently, but not really knowing where to start, or having to do a huge amount of research to plan their trip, which isn't feasible for everyone, especially if you're used to just kind of going onto the website, putting in your start destination, where you want to go, and basically clicking book. So we just wanted to take all of the legwork out of that for people and make it really simple, make it easy to see kind of what the sustainability credentials actually are as well of the places that they want to stay. Make that all really transparent so people get to kind of find places that align with their values, rather than just seeing a green tick and sort of saying, okay, I guess I'll believe that. Knowing exactly what it means and how it translates through to the things that they care about.
And I've kind of not seen many other companies or platforms that help people find, more environmentally sustainable holidays or trips. I don't know, is there many other people doing it, or is it you guys more of the front runners?
No, I think it's interesting. I think specifically what we're focusing on, I'd say yes, I do think we're probably one of the front runners, but there's been a movement around sustainable travel for a really long time. And I think what kind of has shifted slightly is this focus on the carbon impact of flying. So ecotourism and sort of sustainable travel in terms of things like your impact on the communities that you're staying with, or how you can maybe have nature-based experiences once you get to your destination. That's been around a long time, and I do think is growing in popularity as well. But the move to actually look at the carbon impact of our holidays and our travel, that's something that I think is newer, and that we are seeing now, like a few brilliant companies popping up that are trying to address this in different ways. So some companies that are kind of doing more like package trips, and I think in kind of different countries as well, sort of if I go to a conference or something, I'll see another startup that's trying to tackle the challenge as well. And I think what's nice about how we're all approaching it in slightly different angles is there's lots of opportunity to collaborate and kind of push the agenda forward together.
How carbon heavy is the tourism sector?
So tourism is responsible for about 8 to 11% of global emissions. Wow. And I think what's not really captured in that figure is that since, I suppose, I think, is it 1990 that's our kind of benchmark for bringing down emissions. so many sectors now are kind of on track to kind of turn things around a bit, you know, particularly in the UK. But travel and tourism is just going up. So yeah, I mean, globally, there's growing demand for flying, sort of as you're getting growing middle classes. You're actually seeing an increase in the use of private jets. You know, even kind of not in your like elite. It's kind of slightly feeding down the chain a bit to more people, and it's just such an unfeasible thing in terms of its environmental impact. So it feels like a space where, you know, there is lots of change and lots of movement and kind of a growing focus on sustainability, but at the same time you're also seeing a real increase in emissions and kind of luxury offerings that are even worse for the environment.
Yeah, I think, did you say something earlier about I can't remember exactly what you said, but something about like the impact on, you know, like where you're going on holiday as well. I don't know if you guys saw, was there like some article in the news last week about like, was it like Tenerife or Mallorca or something, where they're all like protesting because basically they're saying like all the tourists are like the island's like overrun with tourists, and they're like damaging, you know, the just not even just the environment, but like damaging all the beaches and all the town, and the government's spending loads of money on the tourists, but they're not spending any money on, you know, the people, the citizens that live there for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
I never really
it's a
thought
real
about it like that.
yeah, it's a real problem. Like over tourism is a real challenge, and it's becoming worse, I'd say, as you're sort of seeing lots of really popular tourist destinations actually having to deal with the consequences of climate change. So where, you know, some like real tourist hotspots last summer having huge problems with forest fires, and you know, the countries having to deal with this and need resources to support it, and you've still got like your luxury holiday makers just sat on a beach ignoring what's going on, and it creates a real tension between residents and tourists where, you know, it puts a real strain on resources, and you've got another tension again between, say, like the governments and the people, where you'll have in lots of these places the tourism department of the government really pushing for a growth in tourism to drive kind of money to come into the country, but it doesn't feed down to the residents. And it's sustainable tourism and regenerative tourism is also really about how to travel in a way that supports the communities that you're visiting, and you're, you know, going there in a respectful way, respectful of the culture, respectful of how they want you to be there and how they want you to be interacting with their country and the nature.
How do you help people then? What's the alternative? What's the people planet friendly version?
What's your model?
Yeah, so what we do, and if someone were to sort of go to our platform, they're able to look through our listing of accommodations, and these are all certified sustainable, but we're building our own kind of back end onboarding system. So it's all about getting the data to feed directly through for transparency. So in future, you'll be able to see this is the emissions of this accommodation, and it's eliminated single-use plastic, or it's 100% renewable energy, it does recycling. So people can kind of pick on the things that matter to them and just see those all really clearly. Just the same way you'd have price and amenities, you've got emissions and sustainability credentials. But what people can sort of do on the platform, that was our real focus, and you know what I think really matters to people, is planning out their trip. So from A to B, you can plan out your journey, put that into an itinerary, and then add in your accommodation for your kind of stopovers and where you're going. And it's all about that whole journey being your holiday. It's not just, okay, how do I get there and then I'm on holiday. That whole itinerary is building out your trip, And I think what's really nice about sustainable travel often is that you're really embedded in the local transport from the moment you set off, and there's almost like much more opportunity if you're kind of in holiday mode while you're on these trains and maybe on sleeper trains around Europe. Loads of people are out in the corridors, maybe like sharing a glass of wine and having a chat, and you can kind of start connecting to the places that you're traveling through and looking out the window and the people as while you're actually doing the travel piece of your holiday.
It's a bit more human, almost a bit more.
To be honest, I hate airports and planes, and that doesn't mean I haven't been on one for a while, but I haven't given it up completely. I can't say I'm, incredible in that way, but I think it's a horrible experience going to the airport. So if you can convince people that there's a better way, I guess that's the problem, isn't it? Like, it's that behavior change, and people are so used to just going and looking at a cheap flight, booking their kind of all-inclusive maybe. How do you address that, getting people to look at things differently?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it could be easy to fall into the trap of being like, we're in a climate crisis, everyone has to give up flying, stop going on holiday. But, what we're really about is showing people that this can be just like a new experience, a bit of an adventure and a different way of doing things. And the first step really is just trying it out. So we're really about showing people the great experiences that you can have if you do a trip without flying, and try to do that inspiration piece. So our platform actually is all kind of community driven, and the idea is that when you make an itinerary on there, that becomes a resource for the rest of the community, and they can see someone's actually done that trip. I could ask them a question about it, how it went, what I need to know so that I don't mess it up if you're completely new to that kind of travel. And there can be a bit of a gap between expectations and reality of these things if you're used to just a packaged holiday. So it's trying to share that community knowledge so that people know what to expect and know what to do in a situation that they kind of weren't expecting, and really get the most out of that trip, have the best time, and inspire other people so that they can see that it's something achievable, and really to normalize it, and so that other people can see, oh, other people are out there doing this, I can do that too.
Yeah, I think that's the community aspect seems really nice around it. I think is that through your website? How does that work?
Yeah, exactly. So when you go on the website, and some of these things are kind of functionality that's kind of still to come, and that will grow as the community grows. So as more people create itineraries, there'll be more for people to kind of look at and interact with. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a big piece of what we want the kind of traveler platform to offer people.
Cool.
And I was keen to kind of learn more about your inspiration for creating Ecosy. Kind of what's your background, and how did you end up creating this company?
Yeah, it's a funny one because my background actually isn't travel. I've kind of come at this as a traveler myself, and just being so surprised that it didn't exist. So my background, sort of, I'm an economist, and I was working in, I've worked in the sustainability sector, in renewable energy and climate policy, and sustainability has always been a big part of my life since I was very young. It's kind of drilled into me, I think, by my mum, that this is really important to be aware of, the impact that we're having. But I think travel was the one thing that just wasn't on my radar really, as something that was bad for the environment. And I suppose that comes down to, it is newer that it's kind of come up on the agenda as the climate impact of flying in particular. And I think the really important benefits that you do get from travel, I think there's loads of good that comes out of, like cultural exchange and seeing different places, and really seeing the nature that's out there in the world can be quite transformative for people to care about what we're doing here. So yeah, it was that piece of being like, okay, I've been lucky enough to travel a lot, but now I'm much more aware that it's got a real climate impact. So let me look at how I can travel differently. And when I went to do it, I was just like, how is the best thing to plan my journey? Someone's blog. And once you work out your journey from the blogs out there, you then go through and have to book each part of that, possibly through different platforms, got to book your accommodation somewhere separate as well, and just wanting to bring all of that to one place where you'll have your trip planned out. And we do it at the moment through click-through links, so you book direct with accommodation providers, with transport providers, so that you're missing out on bookings fees, commissions that you'd normally be charged, etc., and you're kind of getting the best deals in that way. But you've got this one hub place where you've got your whole itinerary, you've got that community behind you to kind of help support you on your journey.
I I love that you're one of those people that was just so frustrated that this solution wasn't out there, that you're just like, oh screw it, I'm just going to make my own one. But they're always the best companies, or I know you're a social enterprise, but they're always the best organizations. They've got the most kind of care and the best kind of design in them. So
yeah actually, on that note, why was it that you decided to become a social enterprise?
I think I'm not sure exactly. I just knew that I wanted to. And I think being a bit aware of the social enterprise movement, I think there's so much that the business world can, and in my opinion, should be doing to move the dial on this. I just think that should be embedded in all companies. Having an ESG agenda within your company, I just don't think is really enough. And waiting for governments to force you to do something on climate change, again, not really good enough. So where the responsibility sits, in my opinion, for things to change is really with businesses, because in a cost of living crisis, where people are tired, stressed, working too much, how much can we really expect them to take on lots of extra work really to reduce their climate footprint? And especially like with holidays, that's sometimes their escape from the stress of their life. It should be as easy to do the sustainable thing as not to. And then people want to do the sustainable thing. But when it's so much harder for them to do that, I just think it's not really fair to be like, well, you're failing or something. Businesses should be out there to make it a straightforward decision. We've made sustainability as easy as the kind of old conventional way of doing things. Now it's just a straightforward choice. There's no burden on you.
Yeah, we've done a similar kind of thing. The way I was thinking about it is it works best when businesses just take it on themselves to kind of bake it into the model. So it's not even like, it's not even like a sustainable extra. It's like, this is just, a really great platform to book a holiday on. And, it just happens to be that you've baked in the whole process, that it is as hopefully as low impact as possible.
And to be honest, as a social enterprise, all that means is that the mission kind of comes first. And our business model is completely aligned to that social mission. So commercial success means a higher impact in terms of our environmental objectives. So aligning those two things, you kind of might as well be a social enterprise.
Makes sense.
I was wondering on that. So I read that, is it something like more than 50% of your profits get reinvested, if that's the right word, into, I guess, your impact? Yeah. I kind of wondered, what is it that you do for that?
Yeah, so I suppose the first thing to say, we're quite new. So we're before the point that we've got all these profits to start pushing into the social mission. But what we're looking at for that is essentially setting up a fund with that sort of majority profit share that will feed back through to say accommodation businesses that are looking to reduce their carbon footprint. So it goes back to the sustainable tourism businesses that want to further reduce their emissions, and almost do it in the way that you know, how they can have the biggest reduction possible for the lowest cost, which is something that we're kind of showing them through the B2B software that we're creating.
Okay.
And then supporting them to do that, because lots of these small independent businesses are really committed to sustainability, and their biggest barrier is financial.
So it's almost like a bit of a flywheel thing, where if you advertise through us, we'll find you, I guess, more purpose-driven customers, and then part of the profits gets reinvested back into them to kind of help educate them and help them lower their impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So, is it possible to travel sustainably on a budget? Because we all know that train prices in this country are ridiculous, and you get such cheap deals on flights, don't you? And all these like package holidays, I guess. So is it affordable to travel sustainably?
I think it kind of comes down to an it depends. So I would say really the answer is yes, it is possible. I think in the UK in particular, it can be a bit harder, just from the fact that our rail system is one of the more expensive across Europe. But if you're kind of comparing like a flight to Spain to getting the train to Spain, or a particular spot in Spain, it will be more expensive. It shouldn't be, but international rail travel compared to a budget airline, it's not going to be cheaper. If you've got more time, then you can take more regional trains, do it slower, have more stops. That will be more affordable in terms of your transport costs. If you take sleeper services, and so kind of one night of your hotel stays, for example, might be wrapped up in your journey, and that's an amazing experience to do, I'd say, as well. There's different ways to look at what you're spending your money on, I suppose. So that's like a hotel and your transport. But when it comes to a weekend break, the thing that you're comparing to might be a weekend break, city break in Europe, and flying there and staying where you stay, and something in the UK. It could be comparable if you're just going like a few hours out of wherever you live by kind of local train, and then staying at a sustainable B&B. There's definitely affordable things out there, really cute like glamping things, like shepherd's huts that are really embedded in nature, and you're doing like lots of nice little walks or things like that, or even cycling holidays, that's free. So it depends what you're looking for as a holiday. If you need something that feels like a bit of luxury, it's not going to be that cheap. But if you want to do something that maybe feels like a bit more of an adventure, or you want to go to these cuter little places, there's really affordable stuff out there.
And with the kind of UK based holidays that people can book through your platform, how big of a problem is the train service in this country? Because like I like taking the train places, right? But it feels like
awful,
3 out of 5 train rides I take end in disaster.
Yeah, I think recently it's been a real problem because the strikes are just disruptive. Like from a social justice point of view, I wouldn't say that there's anything wrong with that. It's just the situation makes it harder for people. I think comparing though, if you look at like peak summer, the amount of flight disruptions that you get are huge as well. So if you're looking at a holiday, yes, that is frustrating, but it's not like that doesn't happen with flights.
That's true.
What I didn't mention, which comes into the budget question as well, is coaches. And I think there's sometimes a bit of wariness about a coach for whatever reason. But they are so affordable. And if you're going for like a shorter journey, really comfortable, I think often can be quite fun. And you've got the same thing of being able to like look out the window and you're going through the nature outside. And I would say they don't get disrupted as much either.
I think I just wanted to vent about trains for a minute.
No,
I was getting a train to Edinburgh the other weekend, and we stopped at Newcastle, and then the conductor person, whatever he's called, came on and he was like, unfortunately the driver's got to go, so we just have to wait for another driver. And I was sat there waiting for like 3 hours for another driver to turn up.
Oh no. Yeah. It is really difficult. Yeah. I was getting a train in Spain, and it just stopped, and then they were like, everybody off. I was like, off. I was like, what's going on? I was in the middle of nowhere. And then they were like, you just have to go round into the town, get a bus, and then get back on the train at this other stop. And like, thank God everyone had to do that, because if I'd been on my own, I'd still be there.
And sometimes that adds to the adventure a bit. I don't know.
You get the same thing, like you say, that you get the same thing with flights, don't you? Flights get cancelled, but
if you've got to wait in an airport for 7 hours, or if you've got to wait in Newcastle for 7 hours, it's not much fun. But if it's like in Spain, it's a bit more endearing somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful town, and it was really sunny. It was January, and it was very hot, which is worrying, but also nice.
Cool. So, how do you ensure the transparency and sustainability with your kind of eco destinations that you promote?
Yeah, so I suppose taking the transport piece first, our journey planner uses emissions data for the different modes of transport to calculate what the route emissions is. And then on the accommodation side, we currently use the Green Tourism certification, which is a UK-based certification, to certify that all the properties we work with are sustainable. But that's something that we knew from the beginning that we wanted to move away from, just because the kind of goal of what we're doing is this transparency piece. So we've now built B2B software to work with all of our accommodation businesses, where they're onboarded through a process. They have to submit all their energy and fuel use data, essentially, and we calculate their per stay emissions. And we're going to build on this software to also gather information on certain sustainability indicators that will again feed directly through to the potential guests. So I think I kind of mentioned before, things like eliminating single-use plastics, that they do recycling on site, or like offer recycling services on site, things around ownership as well, say whether it's a women-owned business or minority-owned business, and covering off other things like that. Also wanting to include aspects of accessibility there too.
What's your view on like offsetting like travel or holidays? Because I'm sure like last year I got a flight on like, I think it might have been EasyJet, I can't remember, but I'm sure when we landed they were like, oh, this plane ride's been offset because we've planted some trees or something.
Yeah,
Is that good or bad?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's bad, except that it's greenwashing. I would say, I think the voluntary carbon markets are nonsense. You know, certainly that there are people that work in the voluntary carbon market sector who are really committed to the climate agenda, really trying to do everything really well, robustly, do the right thing. But I think that doesn't change that there's lots out there, because it's a completely unregulated sector, that it's just nonsense, or might be, you know, it can be anything from like monocropping a huge area of land with one type of tree, and you've planted trees and that's offset X amount of carbon. Was that a good project? Was that, you know, was that the right way to spend that money? But it's also sort of, does that alleviate the responsibility to reduce the emissions in the first place? And I would say it absolutely doesn't. It shouldn't mean I can emit all of these carbon emissions because I've spent a really small amount of money generally to plant some trees somewhere, when arguably we need to be doing, you know, reforestation and protecting the forests that we have, regardless of whether EasyJet is flying its planes or not.
I think tree planting is so important, and we need it, and we need to protect existing forests. But at the end of the day, those trees are going to take so many years to grow. So how an airplane can say that they've offset by planting some trees, it just doesn't make any sense, does it? So,
I'm sure they said it was like a carbon neutral flight or something. I always think whenever I see carbon neutral on something, it's kind of like, seems like a bit of a red flag. But I guess that, you know, we can't offset our way out of this. So I guess the much bigger part of the equation is, or the solution is going to have to be like, you know, designing better ways of doing what we do, like going on holiday, like what you're doing, I suppose. But yeah,
and I think, you know, the aviation sector is a really difficult one to solve, but there is already sustainable aviation fuel that's a drop-in fuel that accounts for less than 1% of fuel used in the sector, and I think it's just expensive. So there's really low adoption, and it's still got the same issues with any biofuel, of like how the crops are grown, or whether it's actually made of waste, which is better, or if it's actually regenerative agriculture that's been done. So, you know, it's sustainable aviation fuel still has its own sustainability issues. You know, it has to be done in the right way. But if it was done in the right way, that would be genuine reductions in emissions. Whereas I think offsetting is just saying, you know, we've flown like we always did, and now we've paid someone to plant some trees.
I guess it must show there's these bigger businesses like that. I mean, that's a very big business, but they're starting to think that, you know, their customers must be wanting to do something slightly more sustainable, else they wouldn't be spending. I mean, I don't think they spend money on anything they have to.
Well, that's the thing.
You're almost standing in the seats.
It does show that there is a demand for sustainable travel if they feel like they need to tell their customers what they're doing. But I think, you know, it does come around from kind of pressure as a sector to be doing something. I think, you know, from the pandemic, when they were all struggling, there were certain things, certain pressure put on them if they were going to be sort of bailed out or supported, that they had to do more in terms of sustainability. But generally, it's just not enough. And there is kind of innovation with, say, like hydrogen or, you know, small scale electric planes, which is really exciting, and it does kind of bode well for the future, but it's too far off, and it doesn't look like it's going to be to scale anytime soon. So that's why anything like that in the sector needs to be coupled with demand side reduction and people switching to other fun, exciting, adventurous ways of traveling.
Definitely. Well, I wish the celebrities would switch to other ways of traveling and not
the
just
celebrities,
not their private jets. The ones,
them all.
the ones that like to fly around in their private jets, should I say?
Yeah.
Well, I do think that comes down to, like, the other point is, you know, in the UK, 50% of people flew 0 times last year, and I can't remember the numbers, but it's a really small percentage of people that are responsible for the bulk of aviation emissions, because it's a frequent flying problem. And then,
well, it's like, politicians, politicians flying, you know, just across the country when they could get a train or at least carpool, I guess, which is so frustrating. I think this is great for holidays, but it needs to be pushed out to business travel as well, doesn't it? And
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's actually something we want to look at as well. How we
suppose if you can start,
if
you can start getting businesses to do it, then it's helping to kind of change people's habits or change the way they think about traveling, maybe.
Well, because we didn't really think about it that much to begin with, did we? We would just kind of drive out to see potential customers, and it's only since becoming a B Corp and obviously looking at different sectors of the business and our impact and everything that we've started to think, well, you know, where possible, we need to get more trains, we need to carpool, we need to introduce things to, you know, reduce our business travel. So yeah, a lot of it is education as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And you mentioned about the cost of the lower impact fuel, if that's what it was called. I can't remember what you called it, but I just wondered, like, cost wise, the trips through Ecosy, you know, are they like way more expensive? Are they more unaffordable? Are they cheaper than, you know, like a traditional package holiday to like Spain or something?
Yeah, so we don't sell trips per se.
Okay.
So it is more like your planning service. So someone would pick the accommodation that suits them, and accommodation wise, our kind of biggest partner on the accommodation side is actually the Youth Hostel Association. So they're all very affordable. But yeah, there's kind of the whole breadth on there, from camping up to really nice hotels and cottages and things like that, which are at the higher end. And then, yeah, it all depends on sort of what you're booking and when you book. If you choose to go for a coach, it will be cheaper. We really want to make this accessible and affordable for people. So, you know, one of the things that we'll do is, if, say, Megabus is doing a particular deal, like it sometimes does, £2 tickets for the next couple of weeks, we'll do a mail out to our community to say, this offer is going on, you can book, you know, really affordable low carbon trips at the moment. And we want to show people that it can be affordable. But yeah, it all depends on what you want to do. But as I said, so on the consumer side, we actually don't have like a commission-based model. We work more with the businesses that we work with for our revenues. So on that front, we actually look at how we can offer discounts for people and make it more affordable. And that's a big part of what we want to do. It also comes down to like when people book. So if you book your trains like as soon as the tickets are released, which I think is normally like 3 months in advance. That's the cheapest time to book. It's knowing little things like that. And it is a different sector. It kind of isn't geared up for holidays in the same way, but it's moving that way.
I like that, because I'm terrible at planning, so I would need that support.
I liked reading how you give people like more of an itinerary as well. I thought the same thing. I was like, if I don't have an itinerary and I go on holiday, I just don't do anything, and then I feel bad about it afterwards. So.
But like you say, I think you mentioned earlier about having the traveling as like part of the experience. I think that's a really nice way, because as I said, like I hate the whole traveling airport situation. So it sounds very appealing.
I do think kind of rail travel can be so much less stressful, because you know, particularly once you're in Europe, it's just free travel, not free, but as in like open travel anywhere. So, you know, not having to do all the barriers and things for international travel, and it's just a much smoother process. You just show up to the airport, show up to the train station and get on your train, instead of having to be there 3 hours early and then basically get trapped in a shopping centre. So
and then your flight gets delayed.
What's obviously Ecosy's sort of quite early on in its journey by the sounds of it, which is very exciting. I just kind of wondered, you said a few bits, but what's the future hold? Like, what are you guys planning over the next few years?
Yeah, I think we do actually have quite a focus right now on our like B2B offering, which I'm quite excited about, because there's so much going on in this space in the tourism sector around how to do things differently, so that there's not this greenwashing issue in the sector, because there's so many certifications out there and green ticks and things that don't mean anything to the end consumer or the traveler. And I think it's a really exciting space to be in, to be getting that data that no one really has, and looking at how that can feed through, you know, not just for the properties that we work with and our own platform, but how we could potentially get that used in other bookings platforms and softwares, and feed throughout the sector as a bit of a standard, or just being normal, that you should see your carbon emissions when you're booking an accommodation. So that's quite exciting. And then is it
going to be like a kite, like almost like a kite mark kind of thing? So it's like a, you know, your own sort of stamp, and then everybody can sort of benchmark from that.
So it's almost moving away from these stamps, to be honest. So I think, you know, it will be data driven. So it's having that data built into whatever software that tour operators or travel agents are using to bring in their accommodations, and it being matched up with the per stay emissions of that property, and that the calculation that's happened there is really robust, is evidence-based, and kind of verified through the software that we're creating, that, you know, it makes sense. They've given us the right data. We know that that is accurate, and getting that accurate data feeding through. So I suppose in a sense it will be verified by us, and it will be kind of rubber stamped that, you know, we know that that's accurate data. But we're kind of moving away from the sort of sustainability indexing and almost like this is a certified sustainable property, to focusing on just those data points and the kind of indicators.
Yes, it's more about showing the impact in a bit more detail, rather than just saying it is A or B kind of thing.
Yeah, and it allows for kind of sorting by emissions, so people can look at the low emissions properties, and if that's something that's starting to be used for ranking, that properties that aren't ranking so highly start looking at that in greater detail to be like, okay, how do we reduce our carbon impact? So we're going to rank higher if people are sorting by carbon emissions.
That's smart. Yeah. It's kind of like what Google have done with kind of websites, right? It's like everybody's making as good a quality website experience as possible because they know it's going to rank higher.
Exactly. It's like how that then drives behaviors.
Sounds exciting.
Cool. Anything else in the plan for the future?
Yeah, definitely. So there's lots more that we want to do on our travel platform. So, building out the kind of community engagement functionality, so people can really kind of connect into itineraries. You'd be able to maybe use your itinerary as a bit of a scrapbook as well, like add mini reviews or comments about the places that you stayed, throw in photos, and that becomes then that live resource for the rest of the community. They can ask questions, and it's this interaction of like liking and saving things that we also want to potentially connect through to like a green travel loyalty points system. So in the same way that you could have that for, you've got your air miles thing, we want to create something like that for green travel, just to, again, build on the affordability side, but also, it's little bits of gamification as well to incentivize people to change their behaviors.
That's cool. One of the things I like most about if I stay at like a lot of like Airbnbs, they have like a book, and then people will like write a message in the book about their stay. I quite like that. I know you can like read through it and people give like tips and stuff. So I could see that being much better if it was digital.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great one to steal your idea.
So we have like a closing question that we like to ask people, and basically we want to kind of find out where people see the world in 10 years. So we kind of like to know where you see the world in 10 years, in terms of sustainable holidays or trips or travel, and how Ecosy will be a part of that.
Great. I think it's such an interesting space. It does feel like this is the time for us to be doing what we're doing. And I really hope and do think that in 10 years' time, sustainable tourism will just be tourism. This has to become the mainstream and the norm. I would say at this point, it doesn't feel like the tourism sector is about to kind of jump on the bandwagon of abandoning flying. So I would say, in the next 10 years, I really hope that we see some innovation in the aviation space that genuinely reduces the carbon emissions. And it does feel like things are changing there, particularly with like electric planes, which is really exciting. And then, I hope that in 10 years' time, the thing that Ecosy has really done to change things here is for it to be standard that carbon emissions are reported in the same way as price across the board, in all the big kind of online travel agencies, and all the small ones. It's not just something that is part of a niche sustainable travel sector, but that is just the norm. Definitely. But it's much bigger than carbon emissions. That's really where we're starting, but there's such interesting and exciting stuff going on in the regenerative tourism space, how we don't just kind of go somewhere and try to not have a bad impact on the place, but what we do to have a positive impact, how we're really understanding what communities want from us, that tourism isn't creating all these protests and rallies against the sector. People are really going to these places with respect and wanting to create positive experiences for themselves and for the communities that they're visiting.
That's exciting. I think what you're building is really cool, and I can see it. You know, I can see people that want this kind of thing. So I'm excited to see what actually happens, like the journey from afar.
Yeah, it's exciting for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't think. Did you tell people where they can find you and how they can get on the platform? And don't know if you wanted to plug that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So it's ecosytravel.co.uk. And you can also follow us on Instagram. It's Ecosy Travel.
Cool.
Nice. I love the name.
Oh yeah, to spell that, because not everyone works out. It's ECOSY Travel.
Ecosy Travel.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a wrap then.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We hope it was truly
Earth your while.
For more information, visit reuserbox.co.uk/earthyourwhile.
And if you'd like to appear on the next series of Earth Your While, please email media@reuserbox.co.uk.